Alright, here we go with Pandemic of Maeve US versus Omnotron Defense System. Or as I think Blizzard likes to call them, the Iron Dwarf Golem Council, something like that. Anyway, there are 4 bosses in this encounter. 2 of them will be active at a time, although only 1 starts. The order is random. So here we've started with Magmatron active. He is a fire-based boss, obviously. The 2 major abilities you have to watch out for are his AoE fire ability that does large raid damage, and his flamethrower where he will pick a target and a red beam will go towards them and he will fry anything near that target in a straight line. And that includes behind them, so just being away from people isn't enough, you have to be in a different line from them. So they all start at 100 energy. When they reach 50 energy, they will put up their shield. This is for every single one of these robots. Also, when they reach 50, another robot will become active. When they reach 0 energy, they will become inactive and will be replaced by a different boss. The shields are not up permanently. They only last about 10 seconds or so, maybe a little bit longer. In general, though, if the robot has a shield up, do not DPS it. It will do bad things to you. Alright, so that's shutting down, and I pick up Arcanotron. This is arcane-based, obviously. The big thing to worry about on Arcanotron is interrupts. We'll cast something called Arcane Annihilator every so often, and interrupt as many of those as you can. On Heroic mode, it is absolutely imperative that every single one gets interrupted, and there is an achievement for, well, there's part of an achievement that includes interrupting all of them. But, yeah, just avoid those as much as possible. Also, he will summon blue circles on the ground, and they act a lot like the Iron Council in Ulduar, where it will increase the damage of anyone standing in it. So that is the boss or players. Arcanotron's shield in particular is kind of interesting because if you DPS him while the shield is up, for each hit he receives, you'll get a stack of a buff that increases his spell power and haste. That buff can actually be spell stolen by a mage, but you really don't want it to stack up because he does some incredible damage. Alright, now we've switched back to me tanking Magmatron. I should point out, right now, Electron is the other robot active at the moment. Electron is actually the least dangerous of all of them by far. He does a chain lightning, and he will cast a debuff on a random target, and it's on me right now, and it just makes them explode, do lightning damage to everyone around them. But, you know, just if you get that debuff, just move away from everybody and it's perfectly fine. There are also 2 key ways to increase the amount of damage you deal. The first is, well, as I already mentioned, Arcanotron's blue circles. If you have your DPS stand in that, they will do increased damage. The other way is to move the boss into that poisonous gas cloud. The gas cloud increases all damage taken by 50%, so that applies to players and the bosses. Toxitron, which is the boss that spawns the poison cloud, also has ads that it spawns. The ads are immune to taunt and need to be kited around. They will start with aggro on a random target, and you just need to stay away from them if you get them. This was a very sloppy attempt for us, the sloppiest one I think we've ever had. And the primary reason it was sloppy is that people were not paying attention to ads. So here we're, 3/4 of the way through the fight or so, and we've got 3 people dead. And this is a fairly simple boss, so that's kind of depressing to see.
Is anybody hungry?
Also, important to note about those ads, they explode when they hit you, and they leave behind a slime puddle. That can kill people around you as well, so yeah, we just completely failed at handling those ads this time. It was kind of sad. A good strategy for dealing with Arcanotron interrupts, and actually any interrupts at all, is to have 2 people handle them. Generally 1 melee and then either a melee or a tank. Most classes have a, well, not most, but most interrupting classes have a 10-second interrupt, so rogues, fury warriors, ret paladins, feral druids, I mean, all DKs, all of those have short cooldown interrupts that can handle every other cast on most bosses. Elemental shamans, and I think if you spec certain ways as enhancement, shamans can get a 5-6 second cooldown interrupt, which will be able to handle almost every interrupt on any boss, at least if interrupts of important spells. But it's best not to rely completely on your shaman. We had our Resto Shaman helping out, but that's mostly just because he's really awesome. So props to Terra there. So now that we have 4 people down, this fight is actually pretty long. The health pools of the bosses were actually designed with you using the DPS buffs available to you in mind, so they have a lot more health than some of the other bosses at this level, particularly considering that they are the opening boss of Blackwing Descent. A convenient thing for this fight is that threat does carry over between cycles. So once your robot shuts down and then turns back on, you will retain whatever threat you had on it before. So that means the only real tricky pickup is when they activate for the very first time. Alright, so after a long, hard fight, well, not hard, but a long fight, we finally get our loot in just a few seconds here. Alright, about time that happened.